Alright guys, and welcome to a Dragon Ball Super card game video. I'm going to talk about this. Some of you guys have seen content that I've put out on this topic before in the past, whether that's unboxing videos, etc. But I think I can offer a unique perspective to kind of what's happening with this and why this is good and bad for different players and different types of players and why this is happening the way it is. So be sure to listen through as much as you can. If you enjoy this content, we will be doing more videos like this, whether discussions or actual live gameplay when the Fusion World version of the game does release on the digital client, because I think that could be really fun. So I hope you guys enjoy and let me know what you guys think about this. So as you see on the left, Dragon Ball Super card game is a physical card game. So I have played the Dragon Ball Super card game. I don't play it as like anymore. I fell off when I had my older daughter. So I played it for the first 2.5 years or so that the game was out. Bought every set. I would buy cases. I would buy lots of, like, I've got thousands of cards in my closet right now, just chilling. Like, I was heavy on the game. Would go to tournaments and regionals and just travel. Like, I was really heavy on the game. But I did fall off, like I said, when I lost the availability of time, right? So I was really excited about this digital client that they teased back in Battle Hour. So the thing about this digital client that you see on the right side was that it was advertised as being a, shout out to super players there, it was advertised as being a digital version of the card game on the left. Now, this winds up being pretty controversial because if you didn't know, the card game is not available in certain regions like Japan. They have like heroes, but that's nothing like this. That's nothing like this Dragon Ball Super card game. In fact, many years ago, before we even got the English version of the Dragon Ball Super card game, there was a card game set similar to the Dragon Ball Super card game in Japan called IC Cardadas, and they even had a mobile app client. I've got videos on that card game too, and they use the same art. It's almost like a beta version, if you will, for what the card game became, because what they did was they pushed that game, made some tweaks to it, remade those cards, all that stuff, and pushed that to the global audience. So anyway, this right digital version was supposed to be a card game version of the left. However, instead of doing that, they've decided to make a split. So the original sets that have been going on for 6 or 7 years now of physical cards are being split from the digital app and another set. The digital app is starting brand new with a set called Fusion World. Now, it's not really a set, because that's just the style of what it's called, right? So the original 22, whatever the number is, sets that came out for the physical card game are being categorized as Card Game Masters version. And they're also making a almost Yu-Gi-Oh! Rush Duel style version of the card game. That's going to be quicker pace, etc. We'll explain that in a minute. And that is called Fusion World. And Fusion World is what is exclusively going to be on the application. This is actually kind of scummy, to be honest, because they advertised this, and in fact, the beta version of this of the card game, because people got to play it, beta came out. It wasn't like this. It was actually just regular cards. I understand why they're doing it. We'll talk about it, but just for the people that were looking for a digital way to play their regular card game, that was what this was advertised as, and they're not doing that anymore. Now, there are other methods like untap.io, I believe it is, and things like that you can play online, but it's not as cool as all the animations we'd get from the official licensed way to play it, right? So anyway, they decided to make a bait and switch, and they're going to make a Rush Duel style where the cards have almost no text on them, which I'm not really opposed to because, God, I hate reading. Look at this. Look at this leader. Look at that. Anyway, look at all that empty box space. They're making basically another version of the card game called Fusion World. And this is what is going to exclusively be on the application. They are not, again, not going to have the original cards there. They may reuse some assets. They may reuse some arts. They are not going to port the original card game over. I almost thought that this would go something like a Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, where they slowly trickle in the cards. They slowly make boxes for them and archetypes for the boxes and stuff like that. Like Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel is very, very different. This isn't even really like it's almost like Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, but not really, because I think that's just a little bit different too, because they still use the regular cards. They just shorten it. This is more like, again, Yu-Gi-Oh! Rush Duel. Anyway, where they've got like new effects, right? But anyway, I almost thought this would go like Master Duel, where they produce all their cards. They just did it differently. One thing that would have happened that they apparently don't want to happen is for the card games application to be different. So they talked about how with organizing the card pools, again, there's like 20 something sets of cards, right? And sets are really big. There's a lot of cards that have come out. And like I mentioned earlier, that is only in one region where, spoiler, this application is being marketed to even regions that don't have the physical card game, right? So Fusion World, which is this Rush Duel version, this quicker condensed version, will also have physical prints that I'm assuming will be worldwide as well. So this is also multifaceted. It's a way for them to double dip this card game, also subsequently increasing its player base by doing so, but by pushing it worldwide. That is what they're trying to do here. That's part of the reason why this happened. But they talked about organizing the card pool, and ultimately they said that it would have just made it to where like it would have been difficult to follow through with cards being slowly trickled in, whatever the case is. Even if they release them in a certain order, like the original set, just push them in regular order, like they were releasing brand new cards again, I guess, from the original sense or sets. What would happen was that it would be kind of difficult to keep their ban list uniform between the card game and the digital app. If they did it that way, it would be things like that would make it more difficult. They even talked about how it was hard to have certain effects on characters, or not characters, but on cards, actually function due to the complexity of them within their app, which is kind of new to me. But some of these effects that have probably popped up since I stopped playing must be insane if that's the case. They're talking about how it's hard to implement them in the game. And they also talked about in here, outside of just the card pool limitations, they also talk about how they don't want, right here, resolving differences in proficiency. They don't want the skill gap, I guess, to exist between players that have played the game for 6 years and the players that haven't, because like I said, this game is being pushed to regions that have never had this card game before, which is actually kind of funny, because what's going to happen is you're still going to have a skill gap, because it's not like the game is going to be uniquely different. There's going to be new cards, but people are going to be able to adapt if they've been playing the game for 6 years, especially to an easier version of the game. So the people that are good at the physical game are going to be good at this version of the physical game. And again, I want to reiterate that they are not stopping production of the original set. Apparently, they do say that they will continue, and that one is called, again, Masters is what the original sets are called. They've bundled them all together. They're just calling it Masters. This new set that's the Rush Duel, quicker, condensed style, it's called Fusion World, to reiterate. They are not stopping production of the original style. And the way that we've had this game for years and years, they're not stopping that. They're just not porting it to the application. The application will have its own style, again, Fusion World. And Fusion World also will have physical releases, so that you will see physical releases for the original card game style and the basically Rush condensed version of it. So you could, the same thing is happening with Yu-Gi-Oh! Like if you go to a shop and buy Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards, you'll see them side by side, right? Anyway, so ultimately, they talk about the skill thing, which I think is kind of funny, because like it's like, well, people are still gonna, there's still gonna be a skill gap here. And as somebody that played the game for a long time and actually has, like I said, wanted to get back into the game, I'm actually kind of excited for the quicker condensed version. It's supposed to come out, they said that it'll come out around February, right? They have pre-release listed here, so somewhere in that area. They're probably going to do a soft launch in regions. That's typically the way people they typically do that. So mid-February or so, late February, in February period, we'll see this start popping up, right? And they're going to hold a beta in the winter as well. But they kind of talked about that, and that's kind of the main reason, I think. They talk about other things in here, like why they decided to, other reasons why they decided to make this change. I think regardless of all the other stuff that they mentioned, like how it'll be hard to keep the ban list uniform, how the card game would just differ, even if it's the same card game, the meta game basically would differ on the application. They talked about the difficulties of implementing all those cards. They talked about the difficulties of implementing specific cards due to specific complex things in their kit that are going to probably react a certain way to other cards, etc. The type of things that if you play in a tournament, you got to be like, Judge, how does this work, right? And then sometimes even the judge is like, can somebody help me with this, because this is just stupid, those types of things, right? So it's not going to be like an everyday thing. But they talked about a bunch of stuff. I think that the biggest and most vital reason why this is changing, though, is because of the worldwide nature of it. I genuinely think that regardless of everything else, that's it. And I want to talk about the Masters version. Again, physical card game version that's not getting put on the app. Again, I want to keep specifying because Fusion World is also getting a physical release. But anyway, the original series and its regular playstyle, they're not canceling it. But my thing with this is I'm curious to see what they do with this. They say they're going to keep up regular support and everything, but I also, if I'm being honest, wouldn't be surprised if it gets phased out within the next like 3, 4, 5 years and they exclusively do the Rush format. I wouldn't be surprised. Now, that doesn't mean you can never like hit your friend up and play, but that does mean they may stop printing, obviously. That does mean they may stop holding events for that version and specifically do Fusion World. I don't know. Obviously, that's a lot of time that needs to pass before then. They say their plans aren't that, but also plans can change, right? So I'm curious to see what happens ultimately with that. And obviously no one would like that. I think since it's a card game that's pretty successful. In fact, this card game was so, it's not the biggest card game in the world, but it was so successful that it spawned off a bunch of other card games. One Piece, My Hero, and these other games are, I think there's a Naruto one too. These games are like not anywhere near as successful, but it's so successful that it spawned these other ones, right? Digimon, it was, I think, the first like spawn that it made. So like, you know, there's other ones that are out there too. So this game is successful. So I don't know that that's the case that they'll do. But one thing that'll happen though for the Rush version of it, the Fusion World version, is actually, since there's physical releases, that also expands the player base a lot, like I mentioned earlier, to where we could have a regional or we could have a really, really big worldwide tournament, and you may have Japanese people playing. You may have this or that person playing, whereas with the regular card game, that would have been very, very few and far between because, again, it's not available for those players. And I'd also really be interested to see what happens in terms of production. Do they slow down production? Even if they don't phase it out, do they slow it down to where it comes out less frequently? Maybe they only do like 2 sets a year or something like that for the original style while focusing most of their efforts and prints on the newer style. That's something that I think that could potentially also happen. And it's going to be interesting to see that the fact that we have them side by side, but other regions are only going to have one version of the game. Because there's no chance in hell they just randomly are like, okay, well, Japan is selling these Rush versions, the Fusion World version, really well. Let's start giving them Masters too, right? There's no way. So I just think that this adds a lot of things to it. And a lot of the players that I've seen are very upset about this, and I understand because this was, I think, above all else, the worst thing about this was that it was marketed, it was talked about, even in the beta, I'm pretty sure. It was all old format, original format, all that stuff. And out of nowhere, when they announce it again, they pull the rug from under everyone, and they not only say, hey, your cards are not going to be available here, but we're going to actually produce a whole other version of the game. So a lot of people are really upset about this or not really knowing how to handle this. Let's read some comments. All the reasons you gave are failings of the dev team. You gave us hope of a digital version, but end up pranking us. This was a bait and switch to the player base, a completely disrespectful move on Bandai's part. We tested the original digital version that was expected to be released sometime this year. Yeah, they also pushed it back. However, Bandai is now going to release a brand new card game and only a digital version for the new card game instead of implementing the digital version of the old version like they said they would. I already talked about that. So it was too hard to make the digital version, so you're rebooting the game. That's it in a nutshell, right? They try to like dress it up and say, oh, we couldn't do this because this and this. And it's like, it's just less work for them to do it that way. It is what it is. I think I do want to give them a little bit of credit though, because I think what would inevitably happen with such a large card pool just starting with the game, people in other regions that's like, I don't know what they would probably put them in slowly, because if they just drop them all in, my God, right? Also, another aspect of this is like, what the hell is the monetization for this game? Like for the digital game, what the hell is the monetization? Are we gonna see like packs, like Pokemon packs, where they put the code in there? Is it gonna be like old school GBA or DS Yu-Gi-Oh, whatever it was, where you can put the ID number in your game? Hell no, because the game won't make any money. Where's the money coming from? Are they gonna have digital packs like Master Duel, like I mentioned, like some of the Yu-Gi-Oh games have, where it's completely separate? And if that's the case, why the hell would you buy 2 versions of the game with physical and digital, right? So like, there's a lot of unanswered questions, right? But with some of the cards having such expansive text and stuff, like rebooting the game, I can understand why that was the logical decision they came to, because it would have been really hard. And to put all those in, like they mentioned with the complexities, blah, blah. But it would have been really hard for players to say, okay, well, here's that. And then if they slowly trickled the cards in, it would say, okay, well, this card works really good with this engine, this and that. But these other players don't know they should be waiting for this next set that they just teased to drop in the game that's going to have these other 5 cards that they should be getting. And if there's an in-game currency, maybe they spent it all. Like, there's so many other complications that I think a lot of these card game only players, especially the ones that don't actually play gacha games or mobile games, aren't really understanding. And it's not to make excuses, but I think there's so many things that kind of go into this, right? Is it good or bad for the current community? I, for one, am sad that they decided to go for a new way to play the digital client. The whole reason I loved Masters is because it was so complex. I really wanted a digital client for it. Yeah, I think it's good and bad. I think it's bad for players that only want to play Masters and don't have interest in playing Fusion World. And also to see that the digital client is going to be exclusively for... Like, it would be a whole different thing if they had Masters and Fusion World clients. Or when you boot the game, you could choose which side you want to play, right? I don't know why they wouldn't consider doing that. I guess it would just take too much work to keep up. But, like, it would be a different thing. But they're saying, nah, no Masters, only Fusion World. So we can't be bothered to code the old card. So here's a simple version, but double to try to double the profits. That's what I said, right? What's going to happen with this game is going to be in more places, like other regions. The digital version is going to have purchases for sure. For sure. It's going to have purchases. And then also the physical card game is going to make it to places this physical card game never got to. So, like, yeah. Which is actually interesting, because I think if the original physical card game from 5-6 years ago came out today, I think if that version came out today, they would push it worldwide. I think if the Dragon Ball Super card game Masters version came out today, it would be a worldwide game. The reason why it's not a worldwide game is because it was them dipping their toes in the water. They weren't sure it was going to be a success, which it was. They weren't sure of that, because we've had a lot of card games. We've had a lot of Dragon Ball card games. None of them have popped like this, right? They weren't sure. And also, Japan also, again, does have technically card game over there with Heroes, where you collect their cards, open their packs, blah, blah, blah. So I understand that. I think if it came out today, it would be worldwide. And the problem also is with Icy Corridas. Remember I mentioned that there was a Japanese version. It didn't do good. The card game, this card game, when they tried to sell it there last time before giving it to us, didn't do good. So I think that that's kind of it. But I think it would be worldwide today. That doesn't mean that it would be super successful over there, because, again, there is other competition that we just don't have here. But it is what it is. I tried out many TCGs, and DBS TCG was my favorite. It's painful to see that you're killing the game like this. I think that's a bit of a stretch. The reason for the new formats are BS. I agree. Kinda. The current game is fun. Takes the right amount of time. Oh, that's another thing. That, like, I've mentioned how it's rush duel, condensed, faster. They want it to be faster. Like, so, like, if you were to boot up Master Duel for Yu-Gi-Oh!, where it's the full format, you play the cards, whatever, like all that stuff, you could sit there for an hour, which is actually really annoying if you're playing on like a phone. You could sit there for 30, 40 minutes on your phone. Like, that's really annoying. It's really annoying. Even Duel Links, when I used to play that game, you could still sit there for 20 minutes on Duel Links, just in one game. And it's like, God dang, can I like close this? Can I open something else up? You know, like that. So like that's something that they're doing here, where they want it to be quicker, because the same would inevitably be the case here. You would be on the game for 40 minutes. It just is what it is. Like, so that's what they're doing. Massively disappointed. See, like, this is why I did this video, because every single person is mad about this. Even on Twitter, on other platforms like Facebook, I've seen everybody's mad about this for one reason or another. Makes me glad I stopped buying booster boxes around set 12. That's about when I stopped buying them. Looks like they may kill off the original game at some point too, which I don't know if that's a bad thing. I guess somebody's really out of the game here. Played since day one, so I've seen everything. They've more than once printed cards that just said F the entire game. Remember Super Shenron? Oh yeah, Super Shenron, man. There were so many cards that just, wow. And we had too many before release erratas on cards due to them being forgetting how the game works. They also were doing that before cards were coming out. They were dropping patches on them, basically. But, you know, you have to actually check the website because they can't literally patch like a game. What the hell is this? I wanted the original card game to play, not this new game. This is a good decision for players like me. The first positive one that had a few cards but couldn't play because nobody played in my region, and resetting the game, allowing new players to come. Nobody wants to play a game that's been here for 7 years. That was a problem with Yu-Gi-Oh! I like that because this is, I think, the most sensible comment on this. I understand why other players are mad, but this is what the design choice is. This is why this is happening. Feels like a Yu-Gi-Oh! Situation where they make Rush Duel as a subtle reboot of the series. I don't know how to feel about this. So how is Yu-Gi-Oh! Sales doing in terms of the regular game versus Rush Duel? We don't want a new game. We can improve the old game. No, I think the problem with the old game is there's just so much. It's not a hard game to learn. It's a hard game to master, though, because there's 7 years of cards. And it's not like it's like Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh, right? But and there's paragraphs on all these cards, and you got to know all these things. You've got to know the best combination. Like, that's kind of the problem with any. It happens to any card game. It actually is happening as well with like mobile games and stuff. Like it just is what it's the power creep of all these things. It's just what happens, right? So that I kind of don't mind a reboot personally for that reason. And in terms of improving, I don't really know how you improve because power creep, all that stuff, it just makes the cards weaker if you try to reduce the tags, this and that. I don't really know what they would do. Very sucky that they did this, but either way, if the game is still playable and the cards look awesome, I think everyone will be happy. No, they won't, but I think the people that enjoy this game will enjoy it for what it is. So I'm going to conclude here. Video is already 3 times longer than I want it to be, but I did have, well, twice as long. I did have a lot of fun seeing this announced. I am really excited for this. I think that above all else, while they list some dodgy reasons, I get the reasons, just like, you know, I think above all else, I think this is good for the game because at the end of the day, it will grow the game, period. There's a divide in the game, but it will grow the game, period. And also, inevitably, what will happen is some players that picked up this version of the card game are going to also say, okay, well, I want to play the other version. And they will look for ways to play the other version. And that's another thing, too. I don't really think people are thinking about all of these. I think it's just the initial reaction that kind of happens. Above all else, the card game is still the same. It's just condensed. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the thumbs up, subscribe. Like I said, we'll be doing content on this. I'll try to find a creative way to do it. So, you know, we stand out a little bit. Have an awesome day, and I will see you all in the next one.